rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. So something happened last night in the primaries, especially in New York. And I got to tell you, if this doesn't shake you to your core, as an American, if it does not shake you to your core to realize that these people are getting and gaining, people to actually vote for them, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, this should make you extremely nervous. What I'm about to tell you tonight should make you extremely nervous here in America. Anyway, I got some more on that. Plus, we also have, I've got some quotes from the great Ronald Reagan with regards to this particular subject. And also, we have a fantastic pet of the week, a touching pet of the week for the end of the show. So hang on to your hats. Speaking of hats, none other than the wonderful Mrs. Whiskey is up for tonight's Pledge of Allegiance. So if you are of mind, please stand, remove your hat if you're wearing one, like me. Place your hand over your heart and follow along with none other than my better and definitely more beautiful half, Mrs. Whiskey, as she recites the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And, of course, I thank Mrs. Whiskey for that wonderful rendition of the pledge. If you would like to hear your rendition of the pledge played here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself reciting or performing the pledge in your style. Take that audio file, video file, whatever kind of file, and attach it to an email, and then address that email to me. Address it to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online, and I will get you into the rotation. I have 24 of these. I'd like to get 26 by the end of 2026, if you would, please. If you haven't already, do it, and then send it in. If you use your phone to record, then all you need to do is use the share option, that's the S-H-A-R-E option, and send it in via fans at AmericanPerspective.online. And I will get you into the rotation as quickly as possible. Tonight, of course, is none other than...
Down to business.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
That's right, it's Whiskey Wednesday. It's like Taco Tuesday, but for badasses. Now, it's extremely freaking hot here today. And by extreme, I mean, okay, we're in the high 70s, low 80s. That's kind of extreme for my neck of the woods because the humidity also kills us. So therefore, I am not drinking straight whiskey tonight. I've gone back to my... Yeah, it's a Crown Royal Blackberry. I know I'm going to take crap from none other than Bonnie, of course. Yeah, no, Bonnie's already, with regards to the temperature, she's oh, boo wine. Oh, boo wine. Anyway, it's a blackberry lemonade. It's a half and half mix of the Crown Royal Blackberry. Because there is a Crown Royal Black, but Crown Royal Blackberry flavored whiskey and lemonade. It's a nice, refreshing drink to have on hand for the summertime. And as you can see, I've already been drinking some of it already. Yeah, I know the Jack Black just doesn't, the Jack Daniels Blackberry doesn't have the same flavor. Anyway, I've already discussed all that. All right, let's move on to our headline sponsor, which of course, I should have been drinking this out of the True Grit Roots Network glass, but unfortunately it's a little small for this kind of drink. But tonight is, of course, TGRN night. So TGRN, True Grit Roots Network. That's right. You can go and check us out at tgrn.net. That's TrueGritRootsNetwork.net, tgrn.net, where you will be presented with ways to listen to our signature channels, Walter Trout Blues Rock Radio and Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio. You can listen right through your browser, right here on the widgets. There's the two widgets, one on the left, one on the right. And you can go ahead and listen directly through your browser, or in a better and more perfect world, you would download our app. We have one for Walter Trout Blues Rock Radio and the other for Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio, both from the App Store and Google Play. You can download them and take us with you on your mobile device. Play us anywhere that you can gain internet connection, and you'll be able to listen to your favorites and maybe swap back and forth. I mean, go back and forth, you know. Some days Walter Trout, some days Dallas Moore. Don't forget, Dallas Moore goes blues on Sundays with Blues Therapy Radio and Blues with a Feeling from none other than Sean Bindley, Down Under. He's our Down Under buddy. That's right, Sean Bindley does Blues with a Feeling. And then that's followed up by Blues Therapy Radio with Big Daddy Ray. That's Big Daddy, all one word, Big Daddy Ray. And you can listen to both of them starting at 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. and then again an encore presentation at 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. Central United States time. And you'll be able to pick up both of those shows on Sundays. Sundays, Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio goes to the blues. You can also pick up their shows on Walter Trout Blues Rock Radio as well, along with a couple other shows over there. Anyway, you can also demonstrate your wonderful support for TGRN or Walter Trout Blues Rock Radio or Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio by going over to our shop. You can see on our top bar menu the word shop. It's right in the middle. You click on that and you'll be taken right to the shop.tgrn.net page where you can pick up our swag. We have t-shirts, hoodies, and caps, all of them with the TGRN logo, Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio logo, as well as the Walter Trout Blues Rock Radio logo. Pick one up for every day of the week. We have a variety of colors, and you can pick up one logo for every day of the week and just show everybody your support for TGRN. That's right. TGRN stands for True Grit Roots Network, and we are based out of Austin, Texas. Yep, Austin, Texas. The live music capital of the world, if you listen to Dallas Moore. Anyway, all right. Well, you know, I'm reminiscing of a time when I was a young man. No, not a young man. When I was a young boy. And I remember that, because I was born shortly after and during the things like the Cuban Missile Crisis had just happened. The Cold War was going on. There was scary things like possible nuclear strikes on our soil because of the Cuban Missile Crisis. And those Soviets, the communism of the Soviets. Yeah. They They were the bad guys back in the day. In fact, if you recall any kind of history class, U.S. history class, there was even a section of our history dealing with McCarthyism, named after Senator, I believe it was Joseph McCarthy, who was rooting out communists across the board. Communists everywhere. And well, one of the greatest presidents, probably the most greatest president of modern history, arguably, none other than Ronald Reagan, also made his bones by going after communists in Hollywood. In fact, speaking about that, if you haven't seen the biopic Reagan, yeah, there we go, Joseph McCarthy, that's right. If you haven't seen the biopic Reagan, starring Dennis Quaid, you probably should. There's going to be, I hear, a limited release in theaters right around the 4th of July coming up here. And it will be a limited release and limited run with additional footage added in to the movie. Something that, I don't know, maybe some of you never before seen kind of footage. But anyway, you ought to go and check it out, because that's where Reagan really got his start, was trying to root out communists in Hollywood. Because, of course, as part of their multi-step plan to overtake and destroy the America from within, was one of the ways that they were going to do it, or one of the avenues, was through our media. And to educate us, or more correctly, indoctrinate us through our entertainment. Now, they also had a plan, or had an arm, where they were going to indoctrinate us through generational pickups in terms of our education department and educating our children, which, of course, Jimmy Carter did them a favor in the 1970s by going ahead and creating a nationalized Department of Education, even though education does not exist in our Constitution at all. And in fact, we were #1 in the world for education. We were considered to be the smartest populace in the 1970s when the Department of Education was created. Now we're running somewhere between, 35 and 50. I think last I had checked, we're at 40. Anyway, Ronald Reagan was a staunch objector of socialism. One of his quotes is, "Socialism only works in two places: heaven, where they don't need it, and hell, where they already have it." Yup, he was right. Now, granted, people laughed at that. But here's another one that he was correct about. He says, "Socialists ignore the side of man that is the spirit." He said, "They can provide you shelter, fill your belly with bacon and beans, treat you when you're ill, all things guaranteed to a prisoner or a slave. They don't understand that we also dream." These people, they seem to think that our existence is to do nothing but service the state. And here's one, and this one, boy, I'm going to tell you, this one is right on. He says, now back in 1927, an American socialist, Norman Thomas, 6 times candidate for president on the Socialist Party ticket, said that the American people would never vote for socialism. But he said that under the name of liberalism, the American people will adopt every fragment of the socialist program. Now think about that for a minute. What do you think all these leftist progressive liberalisms, these liberal ideas like taking care, having the government take care of you, having the government take over everything. Yeah, those are all fragments of the socialist program. That's right. Reagan is also quoted as saying one of the traditional methods of imposing, let me start that again. One of the traditional methods of imposing statism or socialism on people has been by way of medicine. It's very easy to disguise a medical program as a humanitarian project. Most people are a little reluctant to oppose anything that suggests medical care for those who possibly can't afford it. What do you think Obamacare was? Yeah. Hardly anybody today. If I go and I say to someone, hey, look, healthcare, Medicare, Medicaid, welfare, Social Security, all of these things are not in the Constitution. Therefore, they are unconstitutional and should be immediately abolished as a product or a byproduct of the federal government. What do you think I get in return? The first thing that I hear usually is, well, you are horrible. You're a bad person. You're a racist. You're a misogynist. You're a hater of old people. I get nothing but hate. Even though what I have factually stated is completely true. That all of these social programs that the left wants to advocate for and expand, and the Republicans, I'm not going to call them the right, even though they are, but the Republicans don't have the balls to actually say that exact statement and be like, yeah, well, you know what? That's gone. They're not going to do it. They're not going to do it because politically that would commit suicide for them. That would commit suicide. And while I agree the plain statement that things like Social Security in particular, I mean, my mother is retired and is pulling Social Security. And I usually, when somebody finds out that that's the case for me, the first thing they say, so you don't love your mother? Oh, no, I love her completely. Believe me. You don't know all of our backstory. You don't know everything that we have gone through to get me to where I am. She is a very, very, very huge part of why I stand before you today. But understand this. All of those social programs, they are all part of the socialist side of the world. The Marxist, the communist, the fascist, the National Socialist, otherwise known as the Nazi. They are all in camp together. And their one main stated goal, oh, I forgot, the Islamist is also in that group. Their one main stated goal is to destroy Western culture. See, the idea of independence, independent thinking, independent operation, independent money-making, the idea of individual freedoms and individual responsibility for not only oneself, but also one's family, individual rights. Those are all things that every single one of those groups that I just named hate. Every single one. And here's a couple more statements from Ronald Reagan. carrying on his traditional methods of imposing statism or socialism by way of medicine, says, if you don't do this, one of these days you and I, in other words, what he's saying, don't stop this. He says, you and I are going to spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it was like in America when men were free. Folks, we are heading that way quick. What am I talking about? Well, plain and simple, here's what I'm talking about. See, there's this guy in New York City. He just got elected mayor. I mean, just got elected mayor. Half of his social programs that he was intending on putting in place, come to find out he didn't have the money to put them in, and that he also had to ask the state legislature for money, or for permission, I should say, for permission to put them into place. His idea of, free buses for everybody. Free buses everywhere. No paying busing. Yeah, that went the way of the dodo really quick. But here's the problem. Everybody on the left, and by the left, I mean the far left, radical left side of the Democrat Party, they all jumped on the Ma'am Danny bandwagon. And so he, of course, said, you know what? I am going to advocate for, I'm going to back, I'm going to endorse people who are part of my own party, the Democrat Socialists of America. Well, they had a primary last night, and every single one of Zoran Mamdani's backed candidates won their primary. Folks, every single one of these people is a radical leftist socialist. In fact, one of the candidates, I can't remember her name. I think it's, but anyway, one of them literally said, we are here to destroy Western culture. She says that. Clearly, she says that. Now, folks, you have Abigail Spanberger, who was purported to be a middle-of-the-road Democrat. No, she's a hardcore leftist. Dan Goldman got primaried by one of these people. Now, I admit Dan Goldman is a complete, utter, stupid moron. He is not the most intelligent person in the party. In fact, he's far from it. But Dan Goldman got primaried by a hardcore far leftist. Because apparently Dan Goldman didn't stand up against Israel well enough for the radical leftists that were in the party in New York City. Folks, this should scare the bejesus out of everybody. We're talking about a large state. Now, keep in mind, think about this. Let's just go with the assumption that the Democrat Party wins in the midterms, wins back the House, gets the majority of the Senate. What do you think they're going to do? Well, I guarantee you the first thing on their docket is to impeach Trump. They're going to impeach Trump for something stupid, incredibly stupid, something irrelevant, something that doesn't really matter, but they are going to go ahead and impeach him. There's already committees that are being put together in how can they impeach Trump. They will do everything in their power to impeach him and get a conviction and remove him from office. Now, granted, that'll leave them with Vance. But don't get me wrong. Vance right now, in my opinion, is sort of skating on some political thin ice. They'll tolerate him for the rest of the Trump term. But they will definitely be gunning for him in 2028 should he decide to run for president in 2028. These people, these radical people, are coming for all of what would be considered normal Democrats, meaning moderate, American-loving, yet not quite agreeing with the moderate conservatives as to how to get us to where we need to go in this country. These people are looking to, and they will, if they win the Senate, they'll destroy the filibuster. They destroy the filibuster, they'll pack the court. They pack the court. Now we no longer have the courts as a stopgap in the three separate branches, co-equal, balancing each other out. All of that stuff is gone. They win the presidency in 2028. And now all of a sudden they have the three houses that they need. I guarantee you all of the good work that Donald Trump and his administration has been doing will be gone. They'll remove the open border, or they'll remove the border control. They'll go back to an open border system. They'll probably fast track something that allows illegal aliens to go ahead and apply for and achieve American citizenship. They won't care about anything. They will go ahead and make D.C. a state. They'll go ahead and make Puerto Rico a state so that they can lock things in place because all they care about is power. Now, you want to sit here and look at things like Dan Goldman and go, oh, Dan Goldman, I mean, he's pretty far left in the moderate Democrat Party. But they sold him out to dry because he wasn't far enough left. See, the radicals and the Democrat Socialists of America are looking to take over the Democrat Party. They are attempting to get rid of one of the major parties in this country. And right now, even if they get around 40% of the people, they don't even need 60% or 50% of the Americans because of the fact that Americans, we don't vote like we should. See, the only ones that really get political, especially in mid-year or midterm elections, are the ones that really get involved and understand what is truly at stake here. And so what happens? Well, you get these idiots in, these DSA folks in on midterm elections because the midterms are like, well, yeah, whatever. We're not voting for president, so we don't give a shit. Sorry, earmuffs for the kids. And that's exactly how they got in. Yeah, that's exactly how they got in. So, yeah. Folks, this should scare the living crap out of us. And yes, this is happening in New York, but here, I want to throw this out there. See, everybody's paying attention in terms of 2028. Everybody's paying attention to what is potentially going to be a Gavin Newsom run for president. I'm here to tell you, he may enter the race. He may enter the race. But I don't think he's going to be the candidate. you're looking at probably an additional run by Kamala Harris and a challenge to that seat by more than likely AOC. Because AOC is gearing up to run. And by the way, she is on the leftist side of the party. She may not be the most radical, but she's at least more radical than even Bernie Sanders, who almost had a shot if it weren't for the fact that Joe Biden got selected for the position. Yeah, we would have had a big problem with Bernie Sanders. But now Bernie Sanders is a little old. And I'll be honest, the party is probably gun shy from him due to the fact that, you know, Joe Biden crashed and burned spectacularly the way that he did. So I can almost guarantee you the leftist progressives that are in the control of the Democrat Party. Now, don't sit here and tell me, oh, no, the Democrat Party, they're not in control yet. Yes, they are. They are in control. And I can almost guarantee you they are looking for a younger, so fresh, so face, beautiful, well, to some people, beautiful alternative. They're not going to be interested in picking up Cackles the Clown because Cackles, unfortunately, yeah, she crashed and burned spectacularly too. But that doesn't mean that she isn't going to at least try to make a run. I'm sure they're going to have 2 or 3 others in that. You know, you'll probably see Pritzker at 2-ton himself go and jump in the race, but he's not going to be there. I guarantee you people like John Ossoff, even though he may be running pretty decently in the Cauchy predictive market or prediction market, yeah, he's not going to get it. Why? Well, he's Jewish. What do you think happened to Dan Goldman? See, the Democrat Socialists of America are extremely anti-Semitic. And that's what's going to happen. Josh Shapiro, he might want to throw his hat in the ring, but yeah, he got passed up for vice president because of the fact that he was Jewish. Guaranteed. Now, here's the problem, folks. Or here's the challenge and the issue. Is that, according to Ronald Reagan, freedom is never more than 1 generation away from extinction. And we are watching that flow out right here, right now. See, these Democrat Socialists of America, I mean, just take a look at the campaign, the political campaign of Zohran Mamdani, who's never held down an actual job, was a mediocre at best rapper, and all he was doing was TikTok videos and shorts. Remember? Snapshots and sound bites, according to Dan Bongino. What do you think those snapshots and sound bites are pointed to? They're pointed to the younger folks in the realm of the ages of 12 to 30. That's where they're focused. See, they don't even have to win today. That's the thing. They don't even have to win today. All they have to do is win enough and have enough wins within their time there, or at least be able to convince people that, oh, yeah, we're doing things, or, oh, no, we can't do things because of the patriarchy. Oh. Chevy says, do you think Mandemi will try to run for president? Oh, I am certain of it. I can almost guarantee you, once he is done with New York City, he'll either be a governor or he'll try to run for president. Almost guaranteed. I don't think he'll do it in 2028, but you can bet he'll try probably in 2032 or beyond. See, folks, I'm just saying, right here. I'm just saying right here. If you look at the way that the young people talk about economics, they talk about, oh, we've got to have a living wage. Because they don't understand Economics 101, which is basically when your costs go up, prices go up, and nobody benefits. Mm-hmm. And don't get me wrong, but also don't forget that the whole idea of taxing the rich, you hear that from even the most longevity Democrats like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders and even AOC. They all are talking about, oh, tax the rich, tax the rich. The rich have so much money. They can take their money and they can fund the government forever. Except there's only one problem, folks. Eventually, you're going to run out of somebody else's money. And no matter how much math you put out to these people, to these sycophantic leftist lunatic followers, and you try to prove to them mathematically, hey, this ain't going to work. I mean, even if you could grab the top 10% of all wealth, grab everything that they are worth, tax them at 100%. You're not going to be able to fund the government for more than maybe 9 months, possibly a year, if you cut down all spending, which they won't do. See, they don't understand any of the reality of the situation in the fact that the rich, even the corporations, are putting in more in the tax realm than any of the middle class or lower class combined. They're putting in way more. They're footing at least a large portion of the tax bill right now just on their own. And they don't understand why anybody would just like, hey, we're just going to grab the millionaires and the billionaires. Now, I'm going to be honest, I don't understand. I don't have the kind of logic or the lack of logic to understand this. But if you look at who funds the Democrat Party, and you look at who is putting the money in the Democrat Party candidates' coffers, it is millionaires and billionaires. Some of them foreign, even though they're not supposed to. You know, Act Blue kind of helped them out with all of that. But people like Jeff Bezos, staunch Democrat supporter. Rupert, I don't think Rupert Murdoch, although maybe. But those people, they're sitting here and they're like, oh my gosh, folks. Oh my gosh. How do these people justify, well, you know, you're gonna put in a wealth tax on me in California. And you know what? I voted for you. And you put in this wealth tax, and now I'm going to leave California because I know, but I still support you, buddy. Yeah, Democrat Party all the way. Where the hell kind of logic do you get? How did you become so goddamn rich being that damn dumb? I'm just saying. Now, reminiscent of Ronald Reagan, Donald Trump, seeing this, has put out a warning. He blasted the far-left socialist sweep of multiple New York City congressional districts and offered a stark warning to the downtrodden blue states. He said many communists running in badly failing blue states, the vote seemed to have them doing quite well against each other. The bad news is that history has conclusively shown that the downtrodden states that they will soon be running and will only get worse. MAGA, he wrote on True Social. See, these candidates, they are seriously sick and disgusted. Disgusting, I should say. These people that are part of the Democrat Socialists of America, they are making serious inroads in the Democrat Party. See, they follow on their own. And what they're going to do, the radical leftists, their takeover of the Democrat Party is almost complete. You can see it in people like Chuck Schumer, who's sitting there and going, well, you know, I got to appease my voters. Don't believe the hype. I'm betting that Chuck Schumer is running scared. He's running scared for his seat. Now, granted, he's in his 70s, so he probably really doesn't give a shit one way or the other. But they're coming. It's coming. And these young people of today haven't been educated on the practicality of socialism, which there is none. See, socialist, Marxist, communist, they're all kind of one in the same boat, because actually Marxism leads to communism, which leads to socialism. Or vice versa. I can't remember the exact order. But believe me, they're all tied together. Yeah. So, all I'm saying is that we need to take note of these people. They need to understand that we are in, while it seems like the internal destruction of the Democrat Party is a fantastic thing because the Democrats are really and truly stupid, the problem is what's behind it is even more scary and even more stupid. I mean, here's an example. This is one of those people. Yeah, this is one of those people. Here, take a listen to this.
And so, and finding that, the system of capitalism and racism and white supremacy, etc., and Islamophobia have all been used, to colonize lands, right, to take resources from other people. And so this is like a long trajectory. And we're just seeing the manifestations of that continuation, right, with 9/11. And so a lot of times when people are asking us to respond about, attack, right, if you look back, historically, right, a lot of us come from lands that were colonized, lands where wars are being waged, right, and a lot of times because of U.S. policy or the policies in Europe. And so I find that we can connect over that, but then also that the idea that we have to apologize for a terror attack that a couple of people did, and then there is no apologies or reparations for genocides and for slavery, etc., is something that I kind of find reprehensible.
This is how they think. Did you catch that? She's sitting here saying, 9/11, which was a unprovoked, unprecedented attack on U.S. soil. This is an obvious. She is a follower of Islam. You can tell because she's wearing the hijab in New York City, where 9/11 happened. This is no different than Milhan Omar's comment of just some people did something on 9/11. Telling you. This is dangerous, folks. If this doesn't scare you, it really should. Zoran Mondani was the first in all of this. Well, even some people like Van Jones have called this out. And let's just say, if you think that this is anywhere near being over or anything else, let me just tell you, it's not. Here's Van Jones, no friend of the Republicans or the conservatives at all. And here he is on CNN. Just take a listen to this.
Do you think Democrats not in New York City should be learning from this?
Well, first of all, New York City matters because the two most exciting left-wing candidates are here, AOC and Mamdani, but also this is the stronghold for the establishment, Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. This is a battle between the establishment and this insurgency, and the roof is collapsing on the Democratic Party establishment tonight. If Mamdani gets a hat trick, 3 out of 3, this is a new era for the Democratic Party, and you can't write off New York City because this is the place where both, it's the power center for the establishment and the insurgency, and they're going head-to-head tonight. And right now, this is no longer a movement. This is a movement and a machine at the same time. There's just no way to sugarcoat this. If Mamdani pulls off a hat trick, it is a new era in Democratic Party politics.
Well, and if you're a moderate Democrat who's on the election, who's on the ballot this November, Van, I mean, they're all going to get asked about the positions that we're hearing from these other fellow Democrats. Well,
look, I think, from our frontline Democrats will be able to make their case for themselves. I think they'll be able to do okay. We got a lot of national security Democrats in other parts of the country, but this is a big deal tonight. And I think that look, I don't know what you want me to say here. This is a straight up battle between the establishment and the insurgency, and the establishment is getting its butt kicked tonight in New York City.
And that right there that should be the warning shot across the bow. That should be the warning for all Democrats. Dan Goldman lost his primary, suffering a tough defeat to challenger Brad Lander, who, by the way, used to be a Democrat Socialist of America as well. Lander apparently secured nearly 65% of the vote. The problem, of course, is that Dan Goldman was pro-Israel. See, the anti-Semitic part of the party has joined coalition forces with the Marxists. And now you see what is going on. And what's even worse is it's not just the Democrat Party, it's also some of the staunch people who you used to think were on the right. Like the Tucker Carlsons, the Candace Owenses, the Megyn Kellys, the Alex Joneses. Now I understand that Alex Jones and Tucker Carlson are teaming up together. Now, granted, the two of them make sense because neither one of them actually speaks the truth, but that's scary. That's scary. And if you think that at any point in time, if you seriously believe that people like Chuck Schumer or Nancy Pelosi or Adam Schiff or any of these establishment Democrats who have been in Congress for 20 plus years are going to give up their seats and fall on the sword in a, bravery and, blaze of glory for the Democrat American cause. Yeah, I hate to tell you this. They're going to frickin' kowtow the minute that the Democrat Socialists prove that they have the majority, of the party, man. They're gonna bend their knee just like they did with the whole African, the tribe, by the way, that they were talking about. They were talking about apologizing for slavery. For anybody that may remember longer than 30 minutes ago, they were apologizing for slavery by bending a knee, wearing these traditional African tribal garb. But it turns out that tribe was actually the one that enslaved the most Africans for it. Folks, I'm telling you, if you actually think honestly, if you actually believe that this is going to go away, that this is just a phase, this is going to happen, I don't think so. What's even worse, though, is that this is perforating outside of politics. Remember how I was telling you how politics are a reflection of our culture? That politics demonstrates our cultural values. If you look at the way that our politics is going and the things that they are discussing and arguing in politics, that is a reflection of the cultural, the societal norms and the societal culture that you have going on. Here is an example. Before Dan Goldman suffered that hideous defeat, well, yeah, let's just say there's a local market that Dan Goldman can't go to anymore because of this.
Fascinated by the Goldman Lander primary. I agree with you. I think Dan's going to lose. I don't agree with much of anything he's done in Congress, but I'm surprised you sort of glossed over the main issue in this race, which is Israel. I mean, Dan Goldman is a congressman, and he's Jewish, and he went into a coffee shop this weekend in Brooklyn, and they said, you're not welcome here anymore. Brad Lander is out speaking in mosques, telling those people that he'd like to go align himself with Ilhan Omar and the rest of the squad. Dan Goldman's only sin, I guess, is that he thinks Israel has a right to exist. And for that, that has been the principal issue in this. And you've got the mayor of New York City, Mamdani, out saying about AIPAC and Jewish Americans who have participated in our politics that they are, quote, monsters. What is happening right now in New York City, the Democrat socialist takeover of the Democratic Party, should frighten not just Jewish Americans, but all Americans everywhere, because this is the direction the Democrats are headed nationally. Look what's happening in Michigan, and it is frightening. Throwing Democrat Jewish congressmen out of coffee shops in Brooklyn, New York. It's not 1930s Germany. This is the United States of America.
It's not 1930s Germany. But yet the anti-Semitism that is being raised in the Democrat Party is absolutely demonstrating that it is 1930s Germany. Folks, I'm telling you right now. I'm telling you right now, this should scare the living bejesus out of everybody. And none other, and no one should be scared more so than somebody of the likes of Hakeem Jeffries. That's right. Hakeem Jeffries. See, what a lot of people don't understand is that the Democrat Socialists of America, okay, are doing is they are imploding the Democrat Party, and they are going up against the standard, what you would consider the establishment Democrats. Hakeem Jeffries, by the way, was, well, let's just say they reacted. There was a crowd. Yeah. There was a crowd in New York City that had Hakeem Jeffries he showed up onto the screen, and, well, this should scare the bejesus out of him. Take a listen. They called for him to be next. This is the man that is the second in line in the Democrat Party in terms of who's going to be in charge. Yeah, here's the chant. Take a listen to this. You're next, you're next, you're next, you're next, you're next, you're next. Some other common process before they can commit. There you go. There you go. And I'm telling you, people, this is some scary stuff. Now, that isn't minorities in the Democrat Party. There's not minorities in that crowd. That was a largely white crowd yelling at a black man saying that he was next. I thought the Democrat Party was for minorities. Yeah. Apparently, they don't give a crap about the optics when it's their own people. Yeah. By the way, the National Republican Congressional Committee sent Jeffries flowers and a condolence card to Hakeem Jeffries. At least to his office. There it is. Right there. Let me show you. Let me get real close. There. Like, my condolences. Because he was the one that was backing all of the other candidates that Zoran Mondani went 3-0 for. Yeah. Yeah. Folks, this is really, really scary. And I hate to say this, but I honestly believe that I don't think that Donald Trump has enough time in his 4-year term to be able to do this. And I really, honestly, am sort of a little nervous about who might be following him. And, honestly, it really has nothing to do with Trump. It really has nothing to do with Vance. It has everything to do with the Republican Party that seems to be having issues passing things that are needed. We'll get to that in just a minute. Let me see something here. Oh, yeah. So let's move out of New York City, because this guy's another one that is really scary. If you think this is happening in, just because it's happening in Democrat states, that, everything is okay. Democrat states, they're going to do their Democrat crap. They're going to end up, there were comments in the chat that I was seeing. People were saying, let's just throw a wall up around New York City and we'll be good. People have been talking about putting a wall up across, California and like dumping California into the sea. Yeah. Let me tell you, folks, this isn't happening just in New York City or just in California or just in Washington or just in Oregon. There's this guy in Texas. That's right. Red-blooded American, the Republic of Texas. And there's this guy down there who seems to be attracting a lot of people and who is bastardizing the Christian religion and bastardizing the Bible to talk about all these different things that, of course, play right into the hands of the idiot and stupid, complete morons of the Democrat Party and their sycophantic idiots that follow them. James Tallarico, he's running for the outgoing Texas Senator John Cornyn's seat. Now, he talks about how Jesus Christ was a pacifist, which actually he wasn't. That Jesus Christ was, for open borders. Nope, he wasn't for that either. There's biblical references that prove all of that. And that apparently that Jesus Christ would have loved Karl Marx. By the way, Karl Marx didn't believe in religion. And that there is all kinds of trans agendas in the gospel. Things like, God is non-binary. Well, that's not true. And that, God approves of transgenderism, that God approves of being gay. God approves all of this. He doesn't. I can pull up all kinds of references, both in the Old and New Testament, where things like having sex with one another, same sex, is a aberration in the eyes of God. Leviticus is a big one to go and take a look at, but there's others. It's all over. It's all over. And anyway, James Tallarico came out with a quote, apparently, that he essentially said, well, I always think of myself as a Christian who hates Christianity. Huh? you're a Christian who hates Christianity. Apparently, he was on a podcast called Activist Theology. And he said a whole bunch of things. He was on the program back in March of 2021, and he said some very odd things all over the program. It was striking. Most of it was actually Marxist. Now, he obviously loves to use Christianity in his politics, although it's not real Christianity, it's fake Christianity. But it's fake Christianity to the point where people who actually know real Christianity and who actually read the Bible and understand the Bible and have Bible phrases at their fingertips, that his Christianity is blasphemous. Yeah. He was talking to Espinoza, Roberto Che Henderson Espinoza on this podcast, who identifies himself as a non-binary transgender Latin theologian on the autistic spectrum. That's how this guy basically describes himself. He's apparently an ordained Baptist, which you can't be as a transgender. Sorry. Yeah, he's got all kinds of stuff in there. Yeah. By the way, Roberto used to be Robin. Just so you know. Robin, R-O-B-Y-N. Anyway. There's just all kinds of things that Tallarico is doing. So don't sit here and tell me that, oh, this is Tallarico. Oh, Tallarico. Oh, he's in Texas. Oh, you know, he's a Christian. Just listen to him. No, don't listen to him. You can't listen to him, because if you do, you're going to be in the same boat. I mean, I can't even imagine what the heck is going on here. But this, if you think that this Democrat takeover cannot happen in your state, it is happening in every single state. There's very few states, and I would almost certainly guarantee you it's not happening in places like Wyoming or Montana, because they're not big enough to have the electoral college votes and the representation in Congress to actually have it matter. You notice they're only hitting the largest states available: New York, Texas, California. Now here I'm going to tie this in to the Electoral College. See, if they abolish the Electoral College like the Democrats want to do, who do you think, if they can gain control of Texas, New York, California, and just for good measure, pick up Florida and Illinois? Who do you think? Who do you think is going to rule this country? Who do you think is going to win every single presidential election? Even if they don't happen to be able to get rid of the Electoral College, what do you think is going to happen if you can get Texas, California, New York, Florida, and Illinois all together? Well, they're only going to be able to pick up a couple of things, a couple more states, and they would have the entire presidency and everything else. They would have majorities if they could get, if all of their, gerrymandering in California and Illinois at work and everything else, and you would have a very large portion of the House and the Senate already taken up. Oh, and by the way, Tallarico, when he was on this podcast by this individual. He basically confessed when he was on the podcast that he followed the podcast guy on Twitter and couldn't contain his inner fanboy. That Espinosa's book that he wrote inspired him and said, y'all's work continues to inspire me. Don't believe me? Well, here's the book. Here's the post right here. Take a look at that. Activist Theology by transgender Robin Henderson Espinosa. And there's Tallarico. Oh, I'm a big fan. I read Activist Theology last year as a progressive Christian in Texas. Your work is an inspiration. I would love to talk with you. Really? Seriously. Yeah. Folks, this is getting worse and worse. And the biggest problem that we have is the fact that these people are able to take this over because of the fact that these people are not being checked. They're not being balanced. They're not being checked and balanced. I mean, as an example of that, there was a comment on X with regards to the Obama Center, Presidential Center, that it required an ID to get in. And technically, you don't need the ID to actually get in. However, if you want to avoid the $30 a ticket charge, you have to produce an ID that demonstrates that you are from Illinois, that you are an actual Illinois state resident. Well, PolitiFact went ahead and fact-checked this. They called the claim false. But then underneath in the text, they explained what I just explained. Was that, well, yeah, you don't need an ID unless, of course, you're trying to get in for free. And then, of course, you need an ID. The statement was by Marsha Blackburn. She said, yeah, in order to get into the Obama Center, you need an ID. Yeah. I mean, here's Tallarico himself. Oh, my gosh. Take a listen.
In committee, I listened to 15 hours of testimony on this bill. The worst part for me was the number of Christians who used Scripture to justify hurting children. Even on this floor today, a member tried to justify a hateful amendment in the name of God's law. Let's talk about that. The first two lines of the Bible, the first two lines of Genesis, use two different Hebrew words to describe God. One is the masculine Hebrew noun for divinity. The second is the feminine Hebrew noun for spirit. God is both masculine and feminine and everything in between. God is non-binary. In Genesis 1:26, God speaks of God's self in the plural, saying, "Let us make human beings in our image, be like us."
Yeah. In our image. Male and female. Hello. You just said it, you Nimrod. Oh my gosh. God himself is the divinity. He's the Trinity. God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. Hello. Father, Son, male. Just saying. Yes, the Holy Spirit might be a feminine nature, but God the Father and God the Son, how much further do you have to go here? And notice that they only reference male and female. They don't reference anything else. I'm just saying. I don't know. I don't get it. How anybody can actually say that they follow this guy. There's people all over the net that are like, "Oh, you have inspired me." Yeah. Yeah. Now, he actually hates Christianity, yet he calls himself a Christian. Yeah. He told the hosts of this podcast, he says, well, I just can't quit Christianity even though I hate Christianity. What? 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 Ugh. He's like, and I always get drawn back into it because nowhere else, in no other political philosophy, which, by the way, religion isn't a political philosophy, by the way. He goes, in no other economic theory do I find anything as truly radical or revolutionary as the teaching of that barefoot rabbi. Yeah. Okay. And people will vote for him. They will vote for him because they believe that just because he quotes the Bible, that he is and professes to be a Christian, that he is actually a Christian. Now, I hate to tell you this. Actually, no, I don't. It's just phraseology. But I am going to say this. The Bible itself warns of blasphemers and false prophets. This is false prophet. This is false prophecy. And also, too, just so anybody who is questioning, Satan himself can quote Scripture. Satan himself knows Scripture almost as well as God. Because he uses it, Satan uses it in order to deceive Christians. There you go. All right. Let's move on really quickly here. Because one thing that can at least slow this crap down is being held up by Democrats and their sycophantic rhino followers. So here is a video and an interview. Maria Bartiromo on Fox had Democrat Ro Khanna, who is another one of these radical leftist lunatics. And, well, thankfully, Maria Bartiromo kind of pushed back on Ro Khanna with regards to the voter ID that I was telling you about and have talked about many, many times. Here, let's take a listen.
It's the law.
Elections
agree. Have been lost by a couple of votes. So just to say, oh, it's not a lot, that's not an answer, sir.
But people have been fear-mongering that when that's not an issue in the election. And the reality is that you have, in cases of women, some of the in the cases of some people who are married, that you want them, if they've changed their name, to go and have to prove that with their birth certificate to a registrar
What's
that
the
they
problem?
changed
Get
the
your
name.
birth certificate. Yes, that's the law. You can't vote if you're not an American citizen. Yes, get your birth certificate. Yes, that's exactly right.
No problem.
You know what? I wanted a copy of my birth certificate. I went online. I got the birth certificate. I've got it. It took a week. No problem.
You know, I'm proud of my birth certificate because I'm a bicentennial baby born in Philadelphia, but I don't think people should have to go get their birth certificates and go to the registrar. We have a system that is a system that allows people to vote if they're citizens. And by the way, if you're not a citizen and you vote, you should have enormous penalties, consequences. I'm for making sure that
but we don't
criminally
know
prosecute
because
people
we don't have
who are voting it illegally. That should be the instead of putting the burden on American citizens. Why don't we just make clear that we're enforcing the law? If some
Okay, real quick here, Mr. Khanna. Let me just put this out there. You don't require anybody to prove that they are a U.S. citizen in order to register to vote. You just go off of their word. How in the hell are you going to criminalize that? How are you going to know? How are you going to know specifically that these people are not American citizens if you are not asking up front whether or not they are a citizen? I mean, seriously. You go into the Obama Presidential Center that just opened in Chicago, Illinois, and you go walking in there and say, hey, I don't have to pay because I'm an Illinois resident. Oh, well, can you prove that you're an Illinois resident? No, I don't have to. You just have to take my word for it. Yeah, let's see how well that goes over, Ro Khanna. Sure. See, this is how stupid these people are. And what's sad about it is there's people out there who are, sorry, I lost my cursor. There it is. Who are, voting and shit. Oop, language. Who are voting and are sitting here and they're just saying, oh, yeah, that just makes sense. It does. Right. Right. Well, the SAVE Act, yeah, here we go, still is in limbo. Barely, it's actually on life support, people. I mean, the vast majority of Americans want it to pass, but it's on life support. It literally is on life support. The Senate, Republican senators actually unveiled legislation on Monday to use stolen Russian assets to give to Ukraine while lawmakers continue to say they lack the necessary 60 votes to pass the Save America Act. Well, Chuck Grassley and John Cornyn introduced the Seize Assets for Battlefield Equipment and Readiness Act, called SABRE, the SABRE Act, to allow Ukraine to purchase military equipment using assets stolen from the central bank of the Russian Federation to fund their war against Russia. And many of the Republican senators, these are Republican senators, they kept saying, well, we don't have enough votes to pass the Save America Act, even though the Democrats have clearly said, hey, we're going to get rid of the filibuster so we can pack the court, put D.C. as a state, put in, Puerto Rico as a state. Yeah, this is what we're going to do. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Donald Trump, of course, says, you know what? I'm not going to do it. Meaning, I'm not going to sign this housing bill that just got passed by Congress. He goes, I'm done. He says, I'm not going to sign the housing bill until you pass the Save America Act. Now, there's only one problem with this. There is a time limit. See, Donald Trump will have to veto the housing bill. Because if he does not sign it within a certain period of time, it will automatically become law. So Donald Trump sits here and says, well, the housing bill is on hold. I'm not going to sign the housing bill until you pass the Save America Act. There's only one problem. He's going to have to pass it, or he's going to have to veto it. One other thing. Now, what is the housing bill? Well, I'm going to tell you, the housing bill is a complete overreach of government. And unfortunately, even the guy, I like him, I really do, but Senator Kennedy, who is so, well, okay, so 3 Chevy says, I understand the veto can be overridden only if they have a veto-proof majority, which I'm not exactly certain that they have that here. They need a veto-proof majority in both houses, and I'm not exactly certain that they have it. That being said, it would certainly slow things down and muck things up a little bit. However, here's the thing. Senator Kennedy, who normally I agree with and is very, very, shall we say, excited about things, he said that the Housing Act that being passed is better than sex. He says this bill is better than sex. This is the landmark registration that's out here, which is bipartisan, apparently. But I just have one question for all of the senators, which is really kind of weird to see, like Elizabeth Warren being on part of it, as well as people like Kennedy and some of the other Republicans that passed it. I seriously have a question for all of them. Is where in the Constitution is any of this constitutional? Where in the Constitution does it say that the Housing Act, which by the way is pretty big, it has all kinds of laws and stuff in it, statutes and things. So it's not just like, oh, well, we're limiting the impact of institutional investors in the residential real estate market. Yeah, it's a broad effort, supposedly, to lower the cost of home ownership and level the playing field. Where in the Constitution, in Article 1, Section 8, does this have anything to do with what federal laws are supposed to be passed here? Where? Explain it to me. Like I'm a 5-year-old, because apparently I missed in that section. Again, Article 1, Section 8. There are 18 enumerated items. Not one of them talks about housing as a job of the federal government. Not a single one. Telling you. And it's rare, very rare, to see Trump side with, like, Senator Warren, who actually, they're on the same side on this one. Which, again, I just point out, guys, seriously. I mean, let's just go back to the Constitution. You want to know about things? Go back to the Constitution. Personally, I have a feeling that these businesses are going to sue. And if I were a part of a business, I would use that as part of my arguments. I would say, where in the Constitution does it say that the federal government has the authority to block us, private business, from purchasing a product? This is government overreach. I understand what it's attempting to do. I get it. But in the name of good intentions, it is a blasphemous, broad-ranging overreach of governmental power. Period. All right. One more thing, and then we'll get to the pet of the week. I don't know if anybody saw this, but apparently there's a new report, actually a report of a whistleblower who was a lawyer, who basically said that the Biden Drug Enforcement Agency, DEA, allowed 1 million fentanyl pills to flow to the streets. So a DEA agent has evidence that his agency and federal prosecutors allowed more than 1 million fentanyl pills to flow into the streets of New Mexico during the Biden era, and then tried to silence himself from testifying after he blew the whistle, according to the agent's lawyer. This article is in Just the News. Attorney Tristan Levitt, president of the Empower Oversight Whistleblower Center, said in an interview on Monday night the DEA has a campaign that says one pill can kill, and so the DEA allowing this to happen was really significant. It was driven also by the U.S. Attorney's Office in New Mexico. Now, the special agent, I won't name him, but he's a 14-year veteran of the agency whose whistleblower complaint was chronicled by the Associated Press in a bombshell article on Monday. Yes, this may very well be Fast and Furious 2.0. For those that don't remember, Fast and Furious was the sale of confiscated weapons to the cartels in Mexico. They were hoping, and this was under the Obama administration, they were hoping that the guns would track them to the ultimate end user buyers and that they would be able to pick them up. It didn't go so well. They ended up out on the streets and committed several crimes and were responsible. Several of them were responsible for the death of many Americans. So, yeah. So, there you go. Anyway, according to a interview, according to the special agent's interview, he says after Fast and Furious, the Justice Department headquarters adopted a protocol that said that if you have a wiretap and you know that firearms are going to be trafficked, you have to try and stop them. He said, well, in 2019, they adopted a similar protocol for fentanyl. So the Justice Department's guidance was really ignored in Albuquerque because the U.S. attorney decided to cowboy and do his own thing in the hopes of making a bigger case. How many scandals are we going to find out of the Biden administration? How many scandals? Seriously. All right, folks. Let's get going on to tonight's, yeah, there it is. Tonight's Pet of the Week. All right, tonight's Pet of the Week isn't exactly a pet, but there are interactions that we have, and this is one of the things that I always say, that basically, this is one of the things that I always say that kind of demonstrates that there is a God, okay? There is a God. This is submitted by none other than Bonnie. Bonnie writes, hey, Rick, hopefully you will get this video. Oh, trust me, I did. I don't know if it'll work, but I'm just kidding. I know it'll work. I just hope that I am able to do it. Anyway, she says, I have been meaning to send a video of the sand cranes. Now, she lives in Florida, and apparently Florida has a lot of sand cranes. And so she says she'd been meaning to send in this video of sand cranes in her neighborhood. Now, for those that don't know, Bonnie has recently lost her husband, Fat Paws. We wish him, we always talk about him because he was a big part of the show. As far as being a part of the show, watching all the time. He was a big supporter. He, purchased some shirts and things. He was a staunch patriot, just a fantastic individual. But anyway, on the day that they were heading to going to Orlando to make the ultimate decision. Now, keep in mind that Fat Paws had gotten into a horrific accident, and unfortunately, they were heading to Orlando to make the ultimate decision as to whether or not to keep Fat Paws on the life support. And anyway, she continues and she says that on that day that they were headed to Orlando to make that decision, there were 3 that came up to her door and stood outside for a good 15 minutes. And they couldn't go out the door because the sand cranes were there. Now, apparently, these sand cranes, the sand crane family, they come by and check on her every once in a while. And in this particular case, and I'm sorry, in this particular case, excuse me for just a second. I gotta get this back going again. There we go. No. My bad. Hang on. Right. For the app, yes. This is my problem. No, that's not the app that I want to share. Damn it. It apparently doesn't recognize the, hold on just a second. See, this is what happens when you have one person trying to do this. And let's see. Where are we at? There we go. Now, if I can get it to go this time. Yes. There we go. All right. Sorry about that. But anyway, as I was saying, there are sand cranes. Let me zoom in here and get close. There they are. And apparently this family of sand cranes come by every once in a while and check on her from time to time. This is the day that the whole flock came by and was checking on her. And she says that she surely appreciates these beautiful animals. Please enjoy them coming for a visit. And so, like I said, there they are. They come by and they stand in her front yard and, check things out, take some time, whatever, for it. And there you go. There's the sand cranes. She says that they, in her mind, that they are a living memory of Fat Paws. Yeah, I would guess that Fat Paws is probably sending this family of sand cranes to you, Bonnie, and letting you know that, hey, I'm watching out for you. And so every once in a while they come by just to remind you that Fat Paws is watching, as the sand cranes are watching as well. She wanted me to close her letter by saying thank you to all of her whiskey warriors. All right, Bonnie, they're my whiskey warriors, okay? But you can borrow them, okay? I'll give it to you. You can borrow them. She says, thank you to my whiskey warriors for being there for me. Bonnie, we will always be there for you as much as we possibly can. So there you go. Even though it was all screwed up. That is tonight's Pet of the Week. All righty, folks. That is it for me for this evening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com. Get yourself an account. It is free. And once, thanks, Jarhead. Right now, we are Bonnie's Warriors. Yeah, I know. She can borrow them. She can borrow you guys for a while when she needs them. Anyway, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And once you are signed up and signed in, make sure that you search up the American Perspective channel and hit that green follow button to get notified every time that I go live. Also, too, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, or a thumb sideways or in an angle if you're 3 Chevy across all my platforms, whether it's X, YouTube, Facebook, or, of course, the aforementioned Rumble. We will see you tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your evening, and good night, everybody.